Hey everybody, it's Eric from epautos.com, your libertarian car guy, and I thought I'd do a quick little video walk around / rant about the 2019 Subaru Crosstrek plug-in hybrid. The plug-in is a new addition to the Crosstrek lineup for 2019, and I'll tell you all about that in just a minute. But first, I thought I'd share with you the reasons why I personally dig the Crosstrek and why it's become one of Subaru's best-selling models. It differs from pretty much all of the other compact crossovers on the market right now in a number of very key areas. The first is that it does come standard with all-wheel drive. That by itself would be a pretty strong sell, but it's also cheaper than almost all of the other crossovers in the class with all-wheel drive than the others are in front-wheel drive form. When you add all-wheel drive to models like the Toyota RAV4, and the Honda CR-V, you find that they actually cost a couple $1,000 more than this attractive little sucker does. One of the few that does cost less with all-wheel drive is the Mazda CX-3, which is actually slightly smaller overall than the Crosstrek. However, the Mazda only has about 6 inches of ground clearance, whereas this thing has nearly 9 inches of ground clearance. It's 8.7 inches of standard ground clearance, which is a huge big deal. People talk about all-wheel drive as being the thing to have if you have to deal with snow, if you have to deal with gravel or muddy roads, particularly if they're washed out or rutted. But the truth is, what you really need is ground clearance. It makes all the difference in the world. That's one of the reasons why Subarus in general are so popular, and it's certainly one of the reasons why the Crosstrek is so popular. You get all-wheel drive and ground clearance, and you get it in the same package for less than pretty much anything else offers. Now, the plug-in version offers something in addition to that that you can't get in the regular Crosstrek, and that's a bit more speed, which runs contrary to the usual. Normally the hybrids are a little bit slower than the non-hybrid version of a given model, and that's generally because they're heavier. You know, it takes you add a bit more curb weight when you put in the batteries and you put in the electric motors and all of that. So what Subaru has done is to give you the ability to drive about 17 miles on electricity only, which is great. You know, if you're into that, it's not really that much of a money saver, frankly, because of the higher cost of the Crosstrek plug-in hybrid versus the regular, and because gas is so cheap. However, how do you put a value on being able to go faster? A lot of people criticized the Crosstrek when it first came out for being a bit slow-pokey, and that's true. It takes about 10 seconds to get to 60. Well, if you buy the plug-in hybrid, it's considerably quicker. Subaru says about 1 second to 60 quicker. Doesn't sound like a lot, but when you drive the car, you'll really notice the difference in low and mid-range punch, and that's a function of the immediate torque of the electric motors. There are actually 2 motors in this thing, and that's probably the chief functional virtue of hybrids and electric cars, is that electric motors make all their torque immediately, whereas a gas engine has to build up RPM engine speed before it reaches the point at which it produces its peak torque. So it does take a moment or two, or however long it takes to reach that peak, for all that torque, which is twisting force, to come online and turn those drive wheels and get you going. Whereas the electric motor does it immediately, so that's a real plus. The only real downside to this car, other than it being a bit more expensive than the non-hybrid version, and by the way, don't let the higher MSRP necessarily turn you away, because Subaru outfits this thing with almost every option that they put into the high trim limited and that are optional in a lot of the other models. It's really a very well loaded car, so it's really not an apples and oranges comparison. Okay, back to my main point. The only real deficit to this car relative to the regular Crosstrek is when you pop the hatch, you will see that there's not quite as much cargo capacity, and that's because you've got this raised up cargo floor, and the reason it's raised up is because that's where some of the hybrid gear is, the battery or the motor. I'm not sure exactly which, because I haven't had a chance to take stuff apart and look. But so you lose a little bit of the cargo space, but still overall the plug-in has all of the appeal of the regular Crosstrek, plus it does those 2 other things. Lets you get around without burning any gas, which right now may not save you a lot of money, but who knows, a year or two or three from now, gas might be $4 or $5 a gallon, and then you might be really happy that you spent the extra money up front on the plug-in. But you'll be happy right now about how much more responsive and how much quicker this is relative to the standard version of the Crosstrek. And by the way, at least as of right now, nobody else in this class, I think, is offering a plug-in hybrid. You can get a hybrid version of the RAV4, but it is not a plug-in. This one is pretty much unique, I think, right now. The closest thing to it is the Kia Niro plug-in, but the Niro does not even offer all-wheel drive. Doesn't pretend to be particularly capable in poor weather or deep snow and all of those things. So if you are in the market for a Subaru Crosstrek, you might want to have a look at the plug-in version just for giggles. And you can also get this really cool luminescent blue paint job and complementing interior that come along with it. I'll have more up at epautos.com shortly. In addition to that, I got that article up that I was promising you guys about this business of Volvo speed limiting all of its cars beginning in 2021 to 112 miles an hour, and it's worse than that, actually. They're also talking about limiting it in accordance with whatever the speed limit is. So it wouldn't just be the top speed that would be limited. If the speed limit is, say, 25 miles an hour or 35 miles an hour, the car couldn't go any faster than that. And I know some of you are going to think, oh, but the speed limit is for safety. You don't want to go any faster than the speed limit because that would be unsafe. And I'll explain why that's a lot of nonsense in my next rant/article. But you can read the piece about the Volvo business up on epautos.com now. And there's also a follow-up to my article of a few weeks ago that actually got picked up in a number of places, and other media are talking about it too, about the Glendale sadist, that is the armed government worker out in Glendale, Arizona, who brutalized the passenger of a car for having the effrontery to question demands for producing ID. At any rate, that story is getting more and more interesting each day, so I encourage you to stop by and have a look at that. And that's about all I've got right now. Thanks for listening, and we will catch up with you again soon.